What's up, guys? Alright, I wanted to talk about osage orange today. And that's this tree right here, and right here, and over here. It's actually all around. It grows in the eastern woodlands, and you'll often find it around the edge of a tree line, maybe on a road or a fence line. Right here, we're along a creek, and there's a stand of osage orange all along through here. And I'll talk about what it's used for and what it looks like. So right here, kind of see this one. It doesn't grow super big as far as like a thick trunk. Usually it's less than a foot wide, and a lot of the times it'll grow multiples. So you see these right here, you've got like 3, and it was actually 4 in the one that I harvested already with that stump. And they usually don't grow very straight, and then the branches kind of bow out. I mean, a lot of branches do that, but as opposed to just going like sideways like these sycamores and stuff do, the trunk will thin, taper, and then bow. So that's an identifying feature. And then the bark is somewhat unique as well. And it's got these ridges, and kind of like intersecting ridges that kind of twist or weave back and forth, as opposed to a lot of other different types of bark, like this over here, where it's just kind of no real pattern to it, just textured. I mean, a sycamore is obviously completely different because that wood's white. But once you recognize this wood, it's kind of hard to tell based on, the bark. It's hard to recognize the bark from a distance. But once you get up on it, you'll kind of see these like upside down V's. Maybe you can see that there. You'll notice that, and then it's got some horizontal kind of checkering through it. So that's how you can tell the bark. The wood is obviously yellow. So if you can actually see the inner wood, the heartwood, you can identify it based on that. And then the other identifier, which is probably the key thing that you can use to recognize it, is the fact that it grows thorns. So just look at the branches, and if you see thorns like this, you'll know that's osage orange right away. And it grows thorns all over. It's hard, when you look up, it's hard to see the thorns in there, but if there's low-hanging branches, you'll see thorns on it. That's osage orange. So that's how you identify it. And like I said, it's found in the eastern woodlands all across the United States. Now, some characteristics of the wood, and this is why we're going to be using it. It's an extremely dense wood. You have this yellow heartwood, and then on the outer layer there's like this thin, maybe half-inch layer, quarter-inch layer of this blonde sapwood, and it actually excretes a kind of like a white sap, which is kind of nasty, and when you cut it, you'll see this white stuff kind of leaking down. It looks basically like Elmer's glue, and that's just the sapwood. So the reason that you would want osage orange, it's great firewood, number one. It's extremely dense. It has, I think, the highest amount of BTUs, which is basically a thermal measure for heat, as opposed to any other firewood. So if you want a good hot fire, burn this stuff. Now the thing is, it has to be dry. doesn't have to be, it should be dry. But it's extremely hard to cut this wood when it's dry. Like extremely hard. So that makes it kind of difficult to harvest if it's dead and you want to burn it. So you want to try to cut it when it's green. But even then, it's really strong. So it's going to tear up your chainsaw, your hatchet, axe, saw, folding saw, whatever, because it's just so dense. Now the reason I'm using this today is because I'm going to create staves for a primitive bow. Osage orange is the #1 wood basically in the world for bow making. And it's because it has all of the characteristics that you would want for a bow: the compression, the flexibility, the strength, and even the ability to heat bend it. It'll respond well to heat. So like this part here is kind of turned, twisted. Once you cut staves, you can bend that back out with steam or with heat gun or fire, however you want to do it. Compress it, and it'll take and recognize that that bend that you put in it. So it's very malleable. And it basically has every single characteristic of what you would want for a good bow wood. Now the only trade-off is just the fact that it's difficult to work with. It's not the most abundant tree. It's not like you can go out to any forest and find Osage orange. And the fact that it doesn't really grow perfectly straight, so it's kind of hard to find a good section of it. I mean, there's one right here which actually looks pretty good, pretty straight. But and this one was nice. I got about a 7-foot section, and from down there to here, it's perfectly straight. As far as bow making, you want to select a log that's about, I would say, less than a foot wide, which they don't really grow much wider than that. Probably around 8 inches ideally. And you don't want stuff like this. And obviously this is all funky, but you don't want branches coming out. Anything like that. Because if you have branches, there's going to be knots in here, and that's going to create inconsistencies in the wood. In the grain, I should say. You want a nice, straight, smooth grain. So it's just, you want it as straight as possible. No twists, no bends. And that's what you're looking for. Now some of that, it's not going to always be perfect. You're going to have little knots and little bends, and you can kind of fix that as you're making the bow. And won't always be perfect, but you want to get it as perfect as you can. You can check the how much twist is in the, I mean, obviously you can look at it, walk around the tree. If it's straight, that's good, but there still may be twist, kind of like a barrel, the rifling in a barrel, it has twist. Look at the grain of the bark. If it's turning around the tree, then you know that there's twist in the grain. So you can actually see that from outside without having to do a cross section of the wood. So this one, you can kind of tell a little bit, it's the bark started to turn, and that's why we have this twist. So what I did is that when I cut it down, we took a bunch of wedges, metal wedges, and a maul, hammered them in. You start in the bottom, and then you get a main line cracked, and then you go to the top and just follow that crack and work it down. You'll split it in half. Now you can see what happened here. This is all flush down here, and then it's right here, it kind of starts to turn and turn and turn, and we actually get almost a quarter turn out of it as it twists up. And that may just happen to be how the cookie crumbled, so to speak. Or there may be more of a twist. It looks like there is a twist in the wood itself, which is why it did that. There's not a lot you can do about that. So when cutting a stave, if you get to this part here, you're gonna have this twist to deal with. Now I can cut it off here because it's a 6-foot log and I only need a 6-foot or less bow. So I'll just work with this bottom section that's all straight, that's fine. And I've got 2 big halves here, so I can probably get, you know, 4 to 6 good staves out of it easily. And maybe even more than that. So what I have to do, I'm gonna be making a primitive bow, but it's, or self bow as they call it, but it's a long-term project. Because once you harvest this wood, it takes 1 to 2 years to cure it. Which means you can't do anything with it for at least a year. And you just cut it, split it into staves, and then set it somewhere cool and dry, and let it slowly air dry and cure. And these are really heavy chunks. These are about 300 pounds. What I have to do now is split them again into at least quarters. And I may even do it into individual staves, which would be 1/8 for the total, or I would cut this into 4 pieces. Now when you split it, you don't just shave off a little stave. You go right down the middle, and then you do them in the middle again. So you whatever piece you have, you half it each time. And that'll give you your best chance of getting a good straight cut out of it. It looks kind of rough and splintery here, which it is. But once you get these staves out, you can get your draw knife and plane all that out. Get a nice smooth edge. And really, that doesn't matter because the sides are going to get shaved down. The belly, which is a part of the bow that faces you, will get shaved down. And then the outer layer will get a little bit shaved down but smoothed out. So your bow would be kind of, the back of it starts inside the sapwood, go to about here. So your bow is just kind of sitting in here like this somewhere, right along here. This funky stuff right in the core, you're not going to use that. You just want this yellow along the sides. Fortunately, we've got good 4 inches of undisturbed yellow wood all along each side, so we can easily get a bow out of that. So I'm gonna get started on these and break these open, stave them out, and then we'll do a long series on bow making once we get this going. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Nice day out today. Alright, so here's our very rough staves. This one was kind of an uneven split off of one of the sides, but if you look at it, it's got these nasty knots and all kinds of uneven grain in it. So that's good that that just got taken off, because there's not even a small kid's bow in that. That's not worth anything. These 3, these are pretty good. Now this one here in the middle, you can see what I'm talking about. So look at this dark inner wood here. This is the innermost part that would be in the center of the tree. So you can see it runs kind of straight, but then it starts turning off to the edge. And then you get up here, and by up here, hits this knot, and it almost does a full quarter turn there. Now probably right up to about here is, I don't know, maybe like 65 inches or something. So you could probably get away with cutting that off right there and just having that as your bow for this one. And then keep in mind your bow is going to be in here. You could probably have 2 if you did it right, because you got enough yellow wood there. This one here, Same issue. This should all be flush. And we start turning. About an eighth turn on that one. I guess it's an eighth of a turn, not a quarter turn. But it's still pretty severe. And again, not too concerned about that, because what I'll probably end up doing is I'll cut off that top foot of it. And that'll just mean that maybe the top foot of the limb has a slight twist towards the end, and we can just heat bend that out. Everything else, this grain looks like it's running straight. And I'd rather take a straight grain with a twist rather than a wavy grain like this one. So I can accept that. And then on this stave, this is a pretty good one. Looks a little knotty in certain spots, so I guess maybe it's not that good. Looks great on that side. Nice straight grain. We do have a knot in the center. Little knot right there. If we follow that up, it just goes straight. Actually, it stays straight the whole way. We do have this wave right here from a knot of some kind. And of course that got split unevenly right there, so again, we'll probably have to cut that off. And just discard that, because these are a full 7 feet tall. And you're not going to need a 7-foot long bow. You want 6 foot or less. So right there we have 3 promising staves. And if I had a machete, I could probably even take a hatchet. What I would do is I would go against the grain here and just shave off all these huge splinters. Because you want these as workable as possible once it's cured. And you don't want to have to be taking off a lot of any more material than you have to, especially big chunks, because when it's dry, it's going to be really tough. So if you can do it when it's wet, shave it down, get them more symmetrical and just cleaner, easier to work with without these splinters. And then when you come back in a year, you're going to have some nice staves to work with. I gotta find something to coat the ends with. They say to put glue or polyurethane or latex paint on the ends to keep it from checking, but there's already splits in it and everything else from using the wedges, so I don't know about that. I may just let it do what it's gonna do. But those are our staves. Thanks for watching.